Greetings, class, and welcome back. This is Accounting 202, and this video is related to the document I uploaded earlier today into the Exam 3 module. This is an additional document reviewing problems. I wanted to go over these with you. I did add the solutions so you'd be able to see how they're solved, but I want to explain them to you as well. And so here, I'm going to go through these problems with you. The first problem here is from Chapter 8, and in this case, it's a problem about this corporation, and they have the following forecast of production for the upcoming fiscal year, and they're saying each unit requires 3/10 of a direct labor hour, and it's $16 per hour. They want us to do a direct labor budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Now, of all the budgets that we could do, that we might have more than one column to complete or even the year, the direct labor budget is probably about one of the most straightforward ones. So this is a good candidate. So we're going to start here with required production for the current year. So we have required production. And we have quarter one. I'm just going to put Q1. So this one is 10,000. Q2 or quarter two is 12. Q3 is 11. And Q4 is 10.5. So basically, this direct labor budget is going to take that required production and multiply it by the direct labor hours per unit. The direct labor hours are 0.3. So in this case, in this first one, we're going to have 3,000 direct labor hours for 10,000 units. 0.30 actually. And here we'd have 0.30 times 12. That'll be 3,600 units. 0.30 times 11,000 will be 3,300 units. And then 0.30 times 10.5 will be 3,150 units. These are direct labor hours. And then we're going to multiply those by the cost per direct labor hour, or cost per hour. And so we have $16 an hour in this case. And so 16 times 3,000 gives us a total direct labor cost of 48,000. This is 3,600 times 16. So we get a direct labor cost of 57,600. For 3,300 times 16, we get 52,800. And finally, for 3,150 times 16, we get 50,400. Okay, so this is a direct labor budget, and the reason I'm showing you this is because you need to know how to do it on the exam. There's a chance you could see this problem similar to this. You will not see this problem, but you might see one like it. Okay, I want to go down here to number 2. And this is a slightly different budget because it's going to be overhead budget, manufacturing overhead. And this one, they're basing variable overhead on budgeted direct labor hours. They have a variable overhead rate of $4 per direct labor hour. We have a fixed manufacturing overhead of 60,000, and within that 60,000 is 20,000 of non-cash expense for depreciation. This one, they want us to do the same thing. So we're going to do that. We have the budgeted direct labor hours, and we're going to have Q1 over here, and that's going to be 9,000. In Q2, we have 9,200. In Q3, we have 9,500. And then in Q4, we have 9,800. We're going to multiply these by the variable overhead rate that we have. So we have a variable overhead rate of $4 per direct labor hour. So here we're going to have $4 times 9,000. We get $36,000, and that's variable overhead. And then in the second quarter, we multiply 9,200 by 4, we get 36,800. Third quarter, we multiply 9,500 by 4, we get 38,000. And then the fourth quarter, $4 times 9,800 hours gives us 39,200. The next step for this budget is going to be to add a fixed overhead. So we have fixed overhead, and it's going to be the same each quarter at $60,000. So we have 60,000 in each quarter. So we have total overhead in the first quarter of $96,000. In the second quarter, it's $96,800. In the third quarter, it's $98,000. And in the fourth quarter, it's $99,200. Now, we're going to deduct depreciation expense because it is a non-cash expense. So we're deducting this because we're trying to figure out how much cash we need for overhead. And depreciation is not a cash expense. So we're going to deduct that. So we have 20,000 in Q1, 20,000 in Q2, 20,000 in Q3, and 20,000 in Q4. So what we have then, when we deduct depreciation, is the cash disbursements needed for manufacturing overhead. So with quarter one, we have 76,000. Q2, we have 76,800. Q3, we have 78,000. And then in Q4, we have 79,200. Okay. These are good examples of the budgeting process from Chapter 8. You should know how to do these when we get to the exam, the problem portion. Now, I said that the direct labor one, you could have multiple quarters or months to do. Variable overhead, you're not going to have to do that. You may have one or you may have two, but you're not going to have the full year like they do here. For number 3, This is out of Chapter 9, and this is the flexible budget. But in this case, they're telling us that Shagee Urban Diner is preparing a planning budget. So they're basically saying they're a charity supported by donations. The diner's budget for May is based on 3450 meals. So what they're telling us, this is what they expect to do. This is not an actual result. And they give us these cost formulas. So we're going to have grocery cost at $5.30 a meal. Kitchen operations is $47.50 plus $5 a meal, and then admin expenses is $39.50 plus $1.90 a meal, and then fundraising expenses are just $18.50 per month. And they want us to prepare the budget for the month of May. This is going to be the planning budget. So we're going to look at it by saying, okay, here are the budgeted meals. Okay, so we have budgeted meals of 3,450. We're not calculating any revenue in this. We're only calculating expenses. So the first expense we have is groceries, and that's going to be $5.30 times 3450. So the cost for groceries is $18,285. Then we're going to have kitchen operations, and that's going to be $4,750 plus $5 times 3450. So that'll come out to be $22,000 when we calculate it out. And that's from this. Okay. I guess I got the alignment just a little bit off. But anyway, that's that. And then we have for the next cost, administrative costs. Administrative is the formula of 3950 times $1.90 times 3450 meals. So when we do the math on that and we calculate these out, we get 10,505. And then finally, the fundraising expense is a fixed expense. They don't give us any connection at all to the level of activity. So we have fundraising. Fundraising of 1,840. When we add all that up, we get a total planning budget of 52,640. So total planning budget. And this is just this is it. This is just expenses. But anyway, that's the number they're looking for here. For the next item that we have number 4. Muhlenberger Corp is a service company measuring its output by the number of customers served. They provided the following fixed and variable cost estimates. They want us to prepare a flexible budget for the actual level of activity in April. So they're serving 28 customers, and we have these calculations up here. So we're going to start with basic customers served, and that's going to be 28. And we're going to calculate the revenue based on that. So we take revenue, which is going to be 28 times 48. And that's going to be 134,400 in revenue. And then we're going to have the expenses. So we're going to have wages and salaries, and that's going to be 58,200 plus 1,300 times 28. So when we calculate wages, we're going to have 94,600. Then we have travel, which is $500 times the quantity, so 500 times 28. So we have 14,000 there. Then we're going to have other expenses, and these other expenses do not have anything but fixed expenses in them. So we're going to have a total another of 40,800. Let me do that differently so you can see it better. 40,800. And so what we have then in total expense is 149 400. So when we take the revenue we calculated and subtract the expenses we have, we're going to find a net operating loss, which is going to be 15,000. And it's a negative number. All right, so that does that with number 4. Number 5, we're looking at this Vanco Corporation, and we're talking about this problem. They're talking about calculating the activity variances. And like I'm going to tell you, like I told my other classes, I'm not going to have you go through and create the entire performance report. But what I am going to do here is show you how they calculated a couple of these variances. So we're going to start here with customers served. And with the flexible budget, we're going to do the actual. And with the planning budget, we're going to do the plan, the planned amount. So with planning budget, we had customers served of 36,000 we anticipated. But we actually had in the flexible 31,000. So we're going to take our revenue, which is $3.92 times the customers. So for the flexible, times the quantity. For flexible, that'll mean that we have revenue of 121,520. For the planning budget, we have 141,120. So the difference between these is 19,600. And the thing is, you have to know whether it's favorable or unfavorable. And since the flexible budget is less than the planning, this is an unfavorable variance. I want to do another one here, just the wages and salaries. But so for wages, they give us a formula that is 35.3 plus $1.32 times customers. Okay. 35.3 plus $1.35 times Q. Under the flexible model, under the flexible column, we have a cost of $76,200. All right. Or 220, I'm sorry. I left one of those off. 220. And the planning budget, we have 82,820. We have a variance between the two of 6,600. And what we need to know is whether this is favorable or unfavorable. And since the flexible budget is less than the planning budget, this is going to be favorable. The big thing here to know is that with income revenue, if the flexible budget is higher than planning, that's favorable. If it's lower than planning, it's unfavorable. However, for expenses, they are the opposite. So if the flex is less than the planning, it's always favorable and vice versa. Okay, with number 6, they want us to calculate these ratios from chapter 11. The first thing they want us to do is calculate the division margin. So for letter A, margin is going to be equal to net operating income divided by sales. So net income divided by sales. We have net income of 2,693,229, and we're dividing that by sales of 24,483,900. So what we get here with a margin is 11%. Okay. For the second item, we're looking at what is turnover. Well, for turnover, we're going to look at sales divided by average operating assets. So average operating assets. This will be sales of 24,483,900, and that's divided by average operating assets, which are 5,502, even. So we get a turnover of 4.45. And these things are being rounded too. So if you get the calculation and you're just a little bit off, if it's a rounding issue, I can tell that when I'm looking at your calculations. Okay, the last thing they ask us with number 6 is the return on investment. There are two ways you can do this. Return on investment is going to equal net income divided by average assets, or net average operating assets. So we have net income divided by average operating assets. That will equal 2,693,229 divided by 5,502 even, and that results in an ROI of 48.95%. However, there's another way to do it. Since we've already got the margin and the turnover, we could just take these two and multiply them together, and we would get the same thing. Now, we may get a slightly different number because of rounding, but it's going to be very close to that. But we could do it one of two ways. We can multiply the margin times the turnover, or we can divide net income by average assets. All right, number 7 here is something from chapter 10, and they're calculating a raw materials variance, a quantity variance and a price variance. We're going to do the price variance first. So in this problem right here, we want to do a price variance. And so the formula we're going to use here for letter A is actual quantity times actual price. And we're going to subtract from it actual quantity times standard price. So actual quantity times actual price, we don't really know the components, but we know that the actual cost from number 7 of raw materials purchased was $86,140. And that's just going to go in this gap here instead of these variables, because that's exactly what that is. And we subtract from it the actual quantity times the standard price. And in this case, the actual quantity that we have here is the raw materials purchased, because we're looking at a price variance. So 14,600 ounces times the standard price per unit. So 14.6 times 640. So we wind up with 93,440. And we compare that to 86,140, and we get a difference. So 86,140 is the actual. The standard is 93,440, and because the actual is lower than the standard, our variance here for the price is going to be 7,300. That's favorable. Pardon me. For the second part here, we're calculating the quantity variance. So for letter B, we're going to do actual quantity minus standard quantity, all that times the standard price. So the actual quantity that we have is the quantity used in production. So that's 12,770. That's coming from right here. And we're going to subtract from it the standard quantity. Well, in order to get the standard quantity, we're going to have to do a calculation. So we take the standard quantity is going to equal the production of 2,900 units times the standard quantity per unit, which is 4.4 ounces. And that gives us 12,760 ounces. So that is that is the standard quantity. So 12,770 minus 12,760 times standard price, which is $6.40 an ounce. So we have 10 times 640 or $64 as an unfavorable variance. And this is because the actual quantity is higher than the standard quantity. All right, then the last one we have right here is another quantity variance and price variance, or well, price and quantity variance. And in this problem, it's just like the last one, where we're going to look at, for the price variance, we're going to take actual quantity times actual price. We don't really know what that is, but we know that this is the cost that we spent. So we can put that in right here, $69,840. Nearly transposed it, 840. And then we're going to subtract from that the actual quantity times the standard price, all right? So the actual quantity that we have here is 3,600 meters. So we have actual quantity of 3,600 meters times the standard price, which is $18.50 a meter. That means this calculation will be 66,600. So when we take 69,840 minus this, which, by the way, this is based on standards, this is the actual, we're going to have a variance of 3,240. And because the actual is higher than the standard, we're going to have an unfavorable variance. So when we do this calculation, we'll do the actual times actual and actual times standard. If actual is higher than standard, we have unfavorable variance. So for B, we have to calculate the standard quantity, which is going to be the standard quantity per unit, 7.3 meters, times the output of 520, which is what we have right here. This is what we produced. So we get a standard quantity of 3,796 meters. Okay. And so the materials quantity variance is going to be actual quantity minus standard quantity times standard price. So the actual quantity that we had is what we used in production. It's right here, 3,300. So 3,300 minus the standard quantity that we calculated here, 37.96, times the standard price of $18.50 a meter. We have 496 here that's a negative number, and that means that the actual quantity is less than the standard quantity. We multiply that by 1850, and we wind up with a quantity variance of 9,176 that's favorable. Okay, so these are the problems. I wanted to give you this video. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know. Hope you have a great day and a great week.